I want to read today Act 1, Scene 2. This scene is beginning with Edmund. I told you that Edmund is a significant character in this play. Uh, um, and Edmund is a character of this subplot. There are two plots. Two plots are running parallelly with equal significance in this play. And no other tragedy Shakespeare has introduced two plots. It is the only tragedy in which Shakespeare has introduced two plots. Both the plots are running with uh, almost similar details and with equal significance. You will notice that same things are happening in both the plots. Okay. Here, Gloucester is Edmund is a character of the subplot. The subplot consists of Gloucester, Edmund, Edgar. These are the characters of the subplot. And you will see how these two plots have been interwoven with each other. With a very consummate skill, Shakespeare has merged the subplot with the main plot. At the end of the play, we see that both the plots have been merged in such a way that it's very difficult for us to separate one from the other. Okay, and both the plots have been uh, put into one another uh, at the end of the play, where we see that now there are not two plots. The two plots have been one plot. That is what Shakespeare has done very successfully here. Edmund is a villain in this play. Okay, there are two other villains, three villains. Uh, Goneril is a villain, Regan is a villain, and Regan's husband, the Duke of Albany, is another villain, and Edmund is another villain. But Edmund is different from not only the other villains of this play, but also from the other villains in Shakespeare's plays. In Edmund is different from all villains of Shakespeare. You'll find villains in many other plays. For example, in The Tempest, you saw Antonio was a villain there. The King of Alonso was a villain there. Uh, next, in the next class, will read Othello. There you will find one Iago. Iago is a famous villain created by Shakespeare. Iago is famous, and more famous than Othello, or Iago is as famous as Othello. Iago has been made a significant character in Othello. But uh, more, even than Iago, Edmund is more important. Okay, Edmund has been made more dynamic, more important, more sympathetic, more uh, cunning, more practical. There are many virtues that have been combined into the character of Edmund. Iago is not a sympathetic character. Iago is hard, is full of villainy, is full of cruelty, is full of evilness. But Edmund has heart is full of cruelty. His heart is full of villainy. His heart is also full of sympathy. At the end of the play, we'll see that this Edmund, who was a villain in the beginning, is winning our sympathy. He is doing something for which we cannot feel sympathetic towards Edmund. Another thing is that Edmund is very, very intelligent, even more intelligent than the legitimate son of Edgar. Sorry, legitimate son of Gloucester. Gloucester has two sons. One is Edgar and the other is Edmund. Edgar is the legitimate son, but Edgar is not as intelligent as Edmund. Edgar is not made so dynamic as Edmund has been made. Edgar does not have that mass capacity in his character as Edmund has. And now I'll show you how Edmund is different from Edgar, or more practical, more intelligent than Edgar. Edmund is trying to grab the property of Edgar. Okay, he is trying to have the property of Edgar in his own hand because Edgar is deprived. Edmund is deprived by the custom of this country, the tradition of this country. Edmund is a bastard, and that is why the country will not give anything to Edmund, only because he is a bastard. Edmund says that who has made me a bastard, and why am I born as a bastard? Look the lines. Edmund is saying, thou nature are my goddess to thy law, my services are bound. Look, he's saying nature. That means I'm a son of nature, and nature is my goddess. My services are bound to the laws of nature. Whereof should I stand in the plague of custom and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me? Why should I stand in the plague of the custom and forbid the nations to deprive me? I have been called a bastard, and the custom of this country is depriving me of everything that as a son of Gloucester I should get. But I am not get, despite being a son of Gloucester, because the custom of this country considers me to be a bastard. Why should I stand in the plague of the custom and permit the curiosity of the nations to deprive me? For that I am so 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother. I'm only 12 or 14 months junior to my brother. Moonshines. Look at the phrase moonshines. Okay. Moonshines means months. Okay. There is a phrase many moons back. That means onek mas again. Many moons back. So moonshines. এই সময়ে আমাদের তো এখন solar calendar, তাই না? We have now solar calendar. We follow solar calendar. But you will see in the Muslim countries, for example, in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, in other Middle East countries, the lunar calendar is followed. There, ওখানে কিন্তু 365 দিনে বছর হয় না। হ্যাঁ, তাদের কি প্রায় 10-11 দিন মতন কম। এবং আমাদের দিন শুরু হয় কখন? সূর্য অর্থাৎ দিনের বেলায় আমাদের দিন শুরু হয় রাত 12টার পরে, সূর্য ডোবার পরে না, আমাদের দিন শুরু হয় হচ্ছে রাত 12টার পরে, ঠিক আছে? আর ওদের দিন শুরু হয় হচ্ছে সূর্য ডোবার পরে, ঠিক আছে? যখনই চাঁদ উঠে যায়, a new day is beginning. That is the lunar calendar. In England, when Shakespeare was writing, perhaps lunar calendar was followed, and that is why we find it. For that, I'm some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother. I'm only 12 years or 12 months or 14 months junior to my brother. Why bastard? Why am I a bastard? What for base? Why the society considers me to be base? Why am I considered base when my dimensions are as well compact, my mind as generous, and my shape as true as honest Madam's issue? I am well compact. Okay, my dimensions are well compact. My mind is as generous. My shape is as true as the shape of the legitimate son of that honest madam. Honest madam means the legitimate wife of Gloucester. So what is the difference between me and Edgar? I'm as well compact, as well shaped, as noble-minded as Edgar, the legitimate son of Gloucester. But Edgar will get everything, but I will not get anything. But I don't find any difference between me and Edgar. I'm as well shaped, I'm as noble-minded, and I'm as true as the issue of that honest madam. That means legitimate son of Gloucester. Nevertheless, I have to be deprived of everything. So why brand thus? Why brand they us? Why the people of this country brand me as bastard? With baseness, bastardy. Why should the society brand me as a bastard, as base? I don't find any difference between me and Edgar. And that's why Edmund is revolting against this society. Edmund's revolt is not actually against Gloucester or against Edgar. Edmund's revolt is against the tradition of this country, the custom of this country, the custom that considers such boys as bastards and deprives them of everything. Edmund is saying that why am I born as a bastard? Who is responsible for this? Am I responsible for being born as a bastard? Why the society calls me a bastard? He does not want to accept this tradition of the country that he is made a bastard. And so he's protesting this tradition, this custom of the society, and he is revolting against it. If Edmund was not considered a bastard, if he had not been considered a bastard, he would not have been a villain. So Edmund is a villain not by birth, or he is not actually a born villain. It is the situation that is making him a bastard. And I'm sure that if I was in the place of Edmund, I would have also done the same thing. Because how many years would you accept this injustice? As a conscious person, it is not possible for you to accept these injustices that the society has been doing on you for centuries. Perhaps I told you one day in the Merchant of Venice, Shylock has stood up. He's demanding 1 pound of flesh from the body of Antonio because he wants to take revenge on these white people. They have been doing cruelty, doing injustice on the Shylocks for centuries. Today, he has got a chance to take revenge on him, and he wants to cut a pound of flesh from his body. He's trying to cut a pound of flesh from his body is actually a protest against this tradition of the country that has been that has been depriving Shylock and people of Shylock's community for thousands of years. Here, Edmund's revolt against the, the custom of the society that has been depriving Edmund and others like Edmund of these things. So we see that Edmund is revolting not for actually for his personal greed. Edmund is not greedy. Edmund only wants to have recognition. Okay, he does not want to have the land and property of his father. He wants to have recognition as a uh, not as a that means he wants to have recognition as a son of this society, not as a bastard. That is his main objective of trying to take away the land and property from the hands of Edgar. Okay. Another thing is that look, he's very cunning, he's very intelligent, and he is a Machiavellian villain. Okay, he is ready to do anything that he needs to do to materialize his gain. He does not feel hesitant to do anything, even the most cruel thing. He does not like to. He does not feel hesitant to do that. If he thinks that it will help him to have what he wants to have, then he will do that. So he's a very strong character, does not feel uh, hesitant. He does not tremble when he is going to do that. A Machiavellian character also does that. He does not feel hesitant. He is not um, uh, feeling sympathetic towards anybody. When he needs to be cruel. Okay, when he needs to be cruel, he becomes cruel without looking back, without showing sympathy. Because sometimes sympathy may make a person weak, and that is why he would not be able to do the thing that he needs to do in that particular situation. So Edmund is becoming strong when he needs to become strong. And when at the end of the play, you will see that Edmund is lamenting the decision that he took. He ordered Cordelia to be hanged to death, and he is lamenting having taken that decision. So a character, okay, who is a villain from the beginning, a confirmed villain, at the end of the play is lamenting having taken a decision that would kill a honest character of the play. So that is what Edmund is doing. Edmund is a good connector between the two plots because you know that Edmund develops relationship with Goneril and Regan. Goneril and Regan are two truly bad characters. They have husbands, but they are not satisfied with their husbands. Despite having husbands, the sisters in secret have developed relationship with Edmund. Edmundের সাথে তারা দুজনেই গোপনে গোপনে সম্পর্ক তৈরি করেছে. Goneril does not know that Regan has secretly fallen in love with Edmund. Regan does not know that her eldest sister in secret has developed a relationship with Edmund. And Edmund plays with both the sisters because he needs to gain his personal benefit. Okay, he has a target and he wants to fulfill the target. He has fixed a goal and he wants to reach the goal. And to reach the goal, he will do whatever he needs to do. He does that. So Edmund is more dynamic than Edgar. Edgar is not made so dynamic a character. Rather, you will see that look, he has been he's pretending to be a man. Okay, he's pretending to be a man. His father has ordered that Edgar would be punished to death because he was having a conspiracy against his father, and the son has fled from the court, and he is now trying to save him from being arrested by the force of his father. Edgar should have come to his father directly. and should have asked him why he is suspecting him. But Edgar is not doing that. Edgar is also as foolish as Gloucester is. As Gloucester, without investigating into whether what Edmund is saying is true or false, okay, has believed the allegation brought against uh, Edgar blindly. Gloucester has done that. He has believed blindly the allegations brought against his legitimate son. He should have checked the allegations. He should have investigated into the matter, whether really Edgar is making the plan or not. But he does not go to do that. Like a fool, like a blind person, he believes what Edmund says to him against Edgar. On the other hand, Edgar is fleeing from the palace and is pretending to be mad to save him from being arrested by the foolish or by the force of his father. So he is not coming to his father. He is not asking him why his father has believed him. He could have told his father, and he should have tried to prove to his father that he was not guilty of the allegations that have been brought against him. But we see that he is not taking any such step, that he is running away. He is absconding. So that should not be the characteristic of a good character. So we don't find any sign of intelligence in the character of Edgar, but we find signs of intelligence in the character of Edmund. Although Edmund is a villain, but to be a successful villain is not so easy. He is forming tricks and he's trying to make his purpose successful, and he's doing that. Only at the end of the play, we see that he's showing a sign of weakness. Okay, when he's fighting with Edgar, Edgar overpowers Edmund, and when Edmund is dying, Edmund laments the decision that he had taken. What is the decision? The decision was to hang Cordelia to jail. He sent that decision. So Edmund seems to be a good person. He's not completely a rotten soul. All part of his soul is not completely rotten. There is still some place in his heart that is still containing good elements. Otherwise, he would not have felt sympathetic towards Cordelia. He would not have lamented his decision of killing Cordelia. So that makes us uh, feel sympathetic towards Edmund. That is what uh, that is what Shakespeare uh, has done when he has portrayed the character of Edmund. A villain draws the sympathy of the audience. Usually, it does not happen. You will not find this in other characters. Come to another thing. I will discuss some issues that you will think of, and you will think one, and you will take preparation for your examination. I want to talk to you about Cordelia Skills. Apparently, it seems to us that Cordelia is a very innocent character, honest character. Cordelia does not have any field. If you read the play from the beginning to the end, on the surface, you will not find any guilt of Cordelia. Cordelia is the most honest character created by Shakespeare. Okay, of all the heroines of Shakespeare, Cordelia is the most innocent. Cordelia does not seem to any fault of her own. But Cordelia also has some faults. If you are looking between the lines, and if you are considering Cordelia to be a real person, if you uh, look at the actions that Cordelia has done, you will see that Cordelia can be held guilty of some things that a good person or a practical person should not have. For example, Cordelia, Cordelia is killed at the end, and we say that Cordelia should not have died that date. That means we cannot accept the date of Cordelia. Cordelia is killed. Why should Cordelia die? And why should Cordelia be killed in that way? Cordelia does not have any fault. But we see that Cordelia actually precipitated, okay, her downfall. What is that thing? Cordelia seems to be very prideful. Okay, Cordelia seems to be very prideful. Cordelia seems to be very obstinate. Cordelia is not a child. Cordelia is a grown-up daughter, a manageable daughter. Cordelia And when look, her father has taken the decision of dividing the kingdom into three portions. It is not actually a sacred decision. Although in the drama we see that the king is abruptly bringing it before the people that he would divide his kingdom into three parts and give them to his three daughters. And it will depend, that means how much a daughter will get will depend on how much a daughter loves him. But you will see that this decision is not so abrupt as it seems to be. Rather, it seems to be a very um, decided activity of King Lear. It is not that Cordelia did not know that her father divided the kingdom into three parts. It is not that the three daughters did not know that the king would distribute the three parts among the three daughters, okay, on that day. As in the very first scene of this drama, we see that Gloucester and Kent are discussing, and they are talking about the division of the kingdom that the king has made. Okay, Gloucester is saying that the king has divided his kingdom into three parts, and he will distribute the three parts of the kingdom among his three daughters today. So if Gloucester knows it, if Kent knows it, Regan, Goneril, and Cordelia also know it. I think they should know it. And I think they really know of it, that their father has divided the kingdom into three parts. So, and another thing is that Cordelia says when he takes leave of Goneril and Regan, when she is going to France, holding the hand of her husband, okay, the king of France tells Cordelia to say goodbye to her sisters. And we see Cordelia says that my sisters, I'm taking leave of you with tearful eyes. But my only one request to you, you will love my father in the way you have promised. I know your natures. Cordelia says that. I know your natures. But as your sister, I would not name the faults that you have. It will be shameful for me to name the faults that you have. I am your sister. That is why I would not do that. But I know the stuff you are made of. That means Cordelia knows the character of his sisters. Cordelia knows how cruel his sisters were. If Cordelia had known that, Cordelia should have taken some step to save her father when her father was actually passing into the hands of the cruel sisters. So Cordelia should have done something, but Cordelia is not doing that. You are an honest person, that is very good. You are a truthful person, that is very good. But you have to be very practical. Sometimes you need to tell a lie if necessary. Okay. Sometimes a situation may demand that you have to tell a lie. If you are becoming obstinate, that you are a truthful person, okay, you are an honest person, you would not tell a lie in this situation, then that truthfulness may bring a serious disaster to you and to many persons related to you. Cordelia does that. When Cordelia says that his father gave him a chance to mend herself. Okay, Cordelia sees one after another that his father is asking that kind of expression of love. His father, before everybody, is telling that uh, how much you will get will depend on how much you love me. So profess your love. He is inviting his eldest daughter, Cordelia. And Cordelia has expressed her love in that way. Sorry, Goneril. Goneril has expressed her love in that way, Cordelia says. And Cordelia also says that his father is feeling satisfied, highly pleased with the expression of that love. Regan also does so. And Cordelia should have sensed that if he does not go with the flow, then his father might have done something or might do something serious. It's not that Cordelia does not know the character of his father. If Cordelia knows the character of his sisters, Cordelia also knows the character of his father, because Cordelia has been with his father for many years. So I know very well the character of my father. Okay, the character of my father, the personality of my father is not known to me. So in that time, Cordelia should not have been so obstinate as she became. Rather, in that time, at least if not for herself, for the sake of her father, she should have made that kind of expression that her sisters were doing. But Cordelia did not do that. Even when King Lear was going angry, okay, Cordelia said that nothing, sir. Eh? Nothing, sir. And King Lear is saying that then nothing will come out of nothing. Man his peace. Cordelia is given a chance to correct herself and express her love in a better way, in the way King Lear wants. But Cordelia is coming not up to the expectation of the king. And then what Cordelia is saying the second time shocks even the audiences. Okay, the way Cordelia speaks tells us that Cordelia uh, is not very practical. Okay, and she is not intelligent enough to understand situations. Okay, the next time Cordelia says that I love you as much as a daughter should love. And to worsen the situation, she says that when I will marry, half of the love my husband will carry. I don't find, and we don't find any relation between her love for the husband and her love for the father. You know, one's love for the husband cannot decrease her love for her father. But Cordelia relates it, and in this way, in a foolish way, Cordelia talks. So this is Cordelia's obstinate. Cordelia is very prideful of her honesty. You can be proud of your honesty, but you should not be prideful of your honesty. Cordelia does not tell a lie only because she thinks that she is very honest. And this is actually a sense of her pride. Okay. And this sense of pride brings a disaster both to Cordelia and to her father, King Lear. She should not have been so prideful in that moment. He should have told a lie. Telling a lie is not always bad. Telling a lie is not always bad. Sometimes you have to learn to tell lies because you may be needed to tell lie in some situations. Okay, তোমাদের মনে হয় আমি বলেছি মহাভারতে একটি সময় যুধিষ্ঠিরকে দিয়ে কৃষ্ণ মিথ্যা কথা বলিয়ে নেয় যে তোমাকে যে বলতেই হবে দ্রোণাচার্যকে বলতে হবে যে অশ্বত্থামা খুন হয়েছে। যুধিষ্ঠির বলে যে না আমি বলবো না। এই যুধিষ্ঠিরকে মহাভারতের দুর্যোধন একটি সময় বলে যে তোমার ধর্মই হচ্ছে তোমার শত্রু, তোমার ধর্মই তোমার জীবনের সবচেয়ে বড় ক্ষতিটা ডেকে নিয়ে আসবে, এবং সেটি এনেছিল। দ্রৌপদীকে যখন হেরে যায় এই পাশা খেলায়, তখন ভীষ্ম বলে যে এই খেলা অন্যায্য, দ্রৌপদীকে ধরার কোনো অধিকারী এই যুধিষ্ঠিরের নেই। তখন এখানে তোমার শকুনি বলে আপনি বলার কি, এখানে তো ধর্মপুত্র রয়েছে, ধর্মপুত্র নিজেই বলবে যে তার স্ত্রীকে এই দাবা খেলার এখানে বাজি ধরার অধিকার তার আছে কি নেই। তাকে অর্জুন বারবার বলে ভাই তুমি বলো যে আসলে তোমার অধিকার নেই, কিন্তু যুধিষ্ঠির সত্যবাদী, সত্য ছাড়া সে কখনো মিথ্যা বলে না, সেটাই ছিল তার সবচেয়ে বড় অহংকারের জায়গা। সে বলল আমার অধিকার আছে, and he loses his wife there, and his wife is undressed before all these people in public. So you should not be always true, you should not be always honest, rather sometimes you will have to compromise with your character. If you are not compromising with your personality, with your character, with your principle, okay, sometimes you will have to face a disaster. Cordelia brings this disaster by being too honest and too truthful. She is not actually a practical person. A practical person is he who understands situation and behaves accordingly. Okay, you have to be a practically good person. Cordelia is no doubt honest, no doubt virtuous, no doubt truthful. She deserves our praise, but the problem is that she is not practically good. She does not know what to do in a particular situation. You have to understand situation and you have to behave accordingly. Cordelia lacks in that quality, and that is why she precipitates the disaster that comes to end up being there and herself also. Another thing is that Cordelia, look, there is another thing that can be taken into consideration. Perhaps Cordelia, why was Cordelia not behaving with, uh, not behaving in the way her two sisters were behaving? There may be,
I think there's something I just realized, that it could be a master plan for Cordelia, that she did this way so that she could marry the king of France, because she did not want one third of the country; she wanted the full country. So she
that
at
may
first
be,
went to France
that may
and
be,
then led the two countries to war and then
okay,
got the full country.
it may be working in her subconscious. Okay, it may be working, it might have been working in her subconscious that she would give up the one third of this country and she would be the queen of France. And that's normally a time may come to her when she would be the queen or the ruler of both the country. But there was a risk there. It is not clear to us whether the king of France fell in love with Cordelia and there was a secret agreement between them. Okay, it, you have noticed one thing, that King Lear proposed to the Duke of Burgundy first. Okay, if the Duke of Burgundy had agreed to get married to Cordelia, then Cordelia would not have any chance to get married to the King of France. Even the Cordelia does not know the character of the King of France. It might have been that the King of France was also refusing Cordelia like the Duke of Burgundy. The King of France might also say that I would not accept Cordelia because you are not giving me the dowry as promised by you, as the Duke of Burgundy said. So if the King of France behaved like the Duke of Burgundy, what would have happened to Cordelia at that time? She would lost the one third of the country, lost the pledge of her father, the love of her father, and she would not have any place to go to at the time. So uh, if Cordelia was greedy to be the wife of the king of France, she was again foolish because there was no guarantee that the king of France would get married to her. Okay, there was no guarantee that the king of France would get married to her if she refuses the one third of her kingdom and makes her father angry. One thing maybe in the mind of Cordelia, that Cordelia actually didn't want to engage her father with her. Okay, Cordelia didn't like to engage her father with her. You know, King Lear has already taken a decision that King Lear would pass the rest of her life with Cordelia. And King Lear is also saying that here. Okay, he had a plan that he would pass the rest of his life with Cordelia, with his most loving daughter, Cordelia. And he likes to be under the care of Cordelia. He likes to be under the nursery of Cordelia. So Cordelia's home would be his grave. That is what King Lear has said. Perhaps Cordelia didn't like to get her old father with her because an old man would come to live with her permanently. Okay. If Cordelia agreed, if Cordelia professed her love in the way in which Goneril professed, Regan professed, be sure, and I'm sure as hell, that King Lear would have come to live with Cordelia permanently. He would not have gone to live with the three daughters alternatively for 1 month. Okay, so he has made it clear that his decision was that, his thought was that he would pass the rest of his life with Cordelia. And he likes to be under the care and nursery of Cordelia, who was his most loving daughter. Perhaps Cordelia didn't want to have this burden over her. And that is why he said, I like you, father, as much a daughter should love. Cordelia didn't imagine that her father could get so angry and could get to the extent of disowning her in that way. Okay, Cordelia did not have any imagination, or Cordelia did not think that her father would disown her was completely beyond her imagination. If Cordelia had known in any way, or could have understood in any way, that her father could uh, uh, be angry in that way, to that extent of disowning her, Cordelia perhaps would not have behaved in that way. Cordelia just wanted to get her father angry, make her father angry, so that he decides not to come to Cordelia to live the rest of his life with her. It may be that it was a political decision. Why should I have the father alone all his life with me? He's an old man, and he likes to live a very pompous, a very aristocratic life. And you have seen, look, you have seen the character of Cordelia. Sorry, you have seen the character of King Lear when King Lear has gone to live in the palace of Goneril in the past month. Goneril has become tired, and Goneril has very uh, reasonable ground to feel angry with King Lear. Okay, Goneril has become tired of the nuisance that the knights of King Lear are creating there. King Lear has gone there with 100 knights. And if you look at the lines there, you will see how these knights are behaving there. The knights are not thinking that they are living in a palace. The palace has been turned into a kind of tavern, a kind of inn. Somebody is drinking, somebody is smoking, somebody is dancing, somebody is plotting, somebody is cutting joke with another body. They are raging hue and cry there. And it does not seem to be a palace. A palace is a very important place. Goneril sees it, and it goes beyond the passions of Goneril, that all these people are behaving in that way. It is really intolerable. One cannot tolerate it. And this is the nature of King Lear. King Lear likes to live such a gorgeous, such a pompous, an aristocratic life, being guided by many people. Wherever he will go, he wants to be escorted by large number of people. Cordelia knows that if he agrees to express her love in the way her father wants, then her father would decide to come to her to live the rest of her life, and she will have to accept her father in that way, tolerate everything that her father would do. Okay. And that's why perhaps Cordelia did not want to get her father. You'll see that when in our country, in our culture, what happens? When if a father decides, the father has 3 sons, okay? The father has 3 sons. When the father is dividing all his property among the 3 sons. Now, if the father says that I want to be with my youngest son to the last day of my life, you'll see that the youngest son would say that why would you live with me all your life? You have 2 other sons. You have to go and live with them. King Lear has already decided that he would pass the rest of his life with Cordelia. Cordelia just wanted to get rid of this burden. She just wanted to avoid it. So just to avoid and evade the responsibility, okay, of maintaining this burden that was coming over her shoulder, she might have been as cold as a stone when she was expressing her love. She didn't have. Okay. Another thing is that in so you can say that Cordelia is guilty to some extent. Okay, Cordelia's guilts are not manifested in the text, but if you enter into the character of Cordelia, you will see that Cordelia can be held guilty of some unseen guilts. Okay, some unseen things that Cordelia should have been practical, but Cordelia did not become practical that much. There is another thing that is poetic justice. Okay, you'll also be ready to answer any question on this type of issue, poetic justice. In this drama, there is no poetic justice. Perhaps I told you that there is no poetic justice in this play. Not only in this drama, in many of the plays of Shakespeare, we don't find any poetic justice. Okay. If in 1 or 2 plays we find poetic justice of Shakespeare, those poetic justice seems to be not coming very spontaneously from the story. And it seems that they're forced to come out in that situation. For example, if you read the last scene of the Merchant of Venice, okay, what happens there? What happens there? What happens there is not actually a natural development of the plot. Rather, it is chances. A play is divided into 3 parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Okay, the beginning will very smoothly lead to the middle, and the middle will very smoothly lead to the ending. And the ending will satisfy us. We will have the feeling that it should have been. There should not be any sign of dissatisfaction in the audience when they will see the ending of a film or ending of a drama. But the ending of the Merchant of Venice astonishes us, shocks us. We get we get flabbergasted when we see the ending of the play, because what is happening in the end is completely contradictory and contrary to what happened in the middle of the play. So the poetic justice that has been shown in the Merchant of Venice is not actually a natural development of the plot. Even in Macbeth, we also see a kind of poetic justice that also does not seem to be a natural development of the story, that it seems to be a kind of forced uh, writing. However, Shakespeare was not interested in poetic justice because Shakespeare was a very practical person. Perhaps he didn't believe in poetic justice. Look at the term poetic justice. Poetic justice. It is not actually realistic justice, real justice, poetic justice. You know the meaning of poetry, you know how from where poetry comes. Poetry is actually fiction. Okay, it is fictitious. It is fictitious. It is not real. So it happens only in fictitious, fiction, imagination, in the unreal thing world. It does not happen in the real world. What we find in the poetic justice in a film or in a drama does not really happen in the real life. You will find in our real life that really uh, the good are not always rewarded and the bad are not always punished. Poetic justice is a kind of ideal justice in which the good are rewarded and the worst are punished. But does it happen really in our real life? You will find hundreds of situations in our life or that we see in our society where we see that the good are not always punished and the bad are not, sorry, good are not always rewarded and the bad are not always punished. Okay, it does not happen always. Shakespeare saw with his eyes that it does not always happen, that the good are always rewarded and the bad are always punished. We have seen one drama telecast just a few months back in Bangladesh by BTV, that is Kothao Keu Nei, acted by um, Asaduজ্জামান Noor. Kothao Keu Nei, she Bakir Bhai. Is there any poetic justice in this drama? Do you find any poetic justice? The good are not rewarded. The bad are not punished. Rather, we see that the bad thrive. The bad are happy, and the good, one after another, are getting eliminated from the set. The good are punished. Even the good character that survives at the end is Shubharna Mastapa. She is also punished to some extent, losing everybody, losing her mama, losing the two daughters of her mama, losing her mommy, and losing finally Asaduজ্জামান Noor. She is in fact punished to a severe kind of suffering. Asaduজ্জামান Noor is punished for what? Did he have any fault? He did not have any fault. So he's punished for no fault of his own. So we do not find all this poetic justice in real life. Shakespeare didn't always believe in poetic justice, and that is why he did not give that poetic justice in this play. However, for that, Shakespeare was criticized because we common people like to have poetic justice. If we have watched 1,000 films in 990 films, you will see poetic justice. What happens at the end? The bad are beaten and the good are rewarded. It teaches us that we should not be bad. We should be good, because bad always are hated by people, despised by people, bad are punished, and good are rewarded. The dramatists want to teach us that we have to be like the good characters. They want to develop a kind of morality in us, to develop social values, moral values in us, to develop our character and personality, to teach us to become good people. They fix the poetic justice. But what we see in the poetic justice does not happen really in our life. Only the moralists do that. But writers were not always moralists. Okay, were not always uh, writing didactic pieces, are not giving poetic justice in their writings. Shakespeare didn't want to teach us okay, uh, morality. He presented before us what was actually real. What was actually real. Okay, he didn't want to be romantic to tell us that the good are punished, sorry, the good are rewarded and the bad are punished. It does not happen in this play. We find the good are punished in this play, and the good are punished in such a way, okay, that we don't want to accept and we cannot tolerate. Even the some characters have been punished in such a way that they exceed the limit. For example, King Lear. King Lear was a bad character in the beginning. Okay, in the beginning, he has committed many faults. He has disowned his own daughter, and that is how he has committed a severe sin, and for which he deserves punishment, no doubt. He is a sinner as a father. He is also guilty as the king. Okay, he always has used his power excessively in an illegal way. He has not used his power always in a legal way. Rather, excessively he has used his power. A long despotic rule has made him very arrogant. Okay, a long despotic rule has made him very arrogant, and a long despotic rule in which he has been obeyed. He has been obeyed by people, in which he has never been advised by anybody, in which he has never been criticized by anybody, rather he has always been obeyed. He was never respected, but he was always being obeyed by his subordinates. As he has always been obeyed by his subordinates, he thought what he did was always right. So as a king, he also committed many faults. So he deserves punishment, but he does not deserve this punishment that has been given to him. We have seen the sufferings of King Lear. King Lear should be punished. But do we want this punishment that King Lear has got? King Lear is turned out of the doors of his two daughters. His two daughters behave with him in such a way that no daughter perhaps will behave with the father in that way. King Lear is uh, driven away, mad, driven mad by his two daughters. He's walking on the road, having no shelter over his head. He's now poorer than a beggar. He has become mad when, okay, you have seen in the head how he's behaving. So this is how King Lear has been punished. And finally, what happens? King Lear is also killed. Although he is not killed, he is led to death. Okay, when his daughter Cordelia has died, he also died. So King Lear, it can be said that King Lear is also killed. He is also forced to die. So these punishment we do not want of King Lear. For King Lear, if you look at Gloucester, Gloucester is also punished more than he deserves. Gloucester committed a fault. He was also a ruler and a father. As a father, he was committed a sin by disowning his own son, by believing Edmund, and by disbelieving his own son. He committed a crime by not investigating into the allegation brought against Edgar to him. Okay, he committed a crime by setting force on Edgar. Edgar could not be living a happy, comfortable life. He was always being chased by the force sent by his father. He was always on the lookout. He was always on the fear of being arrested. So Edgar's life has been made completely hellish by his father. So this ruler also committed many crimes in his life against many people of this country. Okay, he was a local ruler. He also committed many faults, many crimes. So for these faults and crimes that he committed as a ruler and he committed as a father, we expect he should be punishment. But he has been punished in a way that horrifies us. He has been punished in a way that horrifies us. We do not expect this kind of punishment. We don't want to see that the Earl of Gloucester would be punished in that way. His two eyes are plucked out. His two eyes are plucked out. Cordelia had fault. I have already said that we can say that we can say, even if we say that Cordelia had these faults, so does she deserve that kind of punishment for these faults? She was truthful, impractical. She did not tell a lie when he should have told a lie. So for that fault, does she deserve this kind of punishment? She was hanged to take for no fault of her own, actually. There is no law that can prove that Cordelia was guilty. But without any justice, without any judgment, it was an extrajudicial killing. Cordelia was killed in that way. So Cordelia's death, King Lear's death, the plucking of two eyes of Gloucester horrify us. And Shakespeare seems to present a very bleak picture of human society in this play. It becomes a very pessimistic play. So we don't find any poetic justice in this play. Perhaps Shakespeare um, we don't know why Shakespeare went to present such kind of picture in this play. He might have uh, had some bitter experiences towards the end of his life when he was writing this play, and these things might have made his outlook very pathetic and pessimistic, and he would have manifested that kind of mood in this play. Another thing is that you have seen the storm scene in this play. Okay, the storm scene is also very important. Okay, I'm just discussing some issues. Okay, I'll not go to read the text. You read the text because these significant issues are you need to discuss the significant issues, and that's why I'm bringing these things before your notice. The storm scene in this play is very important. The storm scene represents Shakespeare's treatment of nature, Shakespeare's attitude to nature. One, Shakespeare's nature is very much like human being. Okay, Shakespeare's nature seems to understand things in the way human beings understand. Shakespeare's nature seems to be very lively, seems to have a kind of soul and heart, seems to have a kind of understanding, okay, power of understanding. It seems that Shakespeare's nature understands the feelings and minds of human beings. It knows when, how it should be, and what it should be like. And that's why it behaves sadly sometimes, it behaves happily sometimes. When we are in happy mood, nature is happy. When something serious is going to happen, the nature also cries. As we have seen in Macbeth, when the King Duncan would be killed, you have seen how the nature is behaving. Okay, the sky is covered with deep black clouds. The moon is hidden under the clouds. Banku says that the nature seems to exercise husbandry. Even the stars are also out of light. It's a big, dark, black night when the king of Duncan would be killed. An owl is crying. And this terrific appearance of the nature, this terrific appearance of the night is telling in the mind, is telling Banku that something serious is going to happen today. Something inauspicious is going to happen today. And really it happens. The king of Scotland, Duncan, was killed by Macbeth on that night. And that is why the moon was not laughing. That is why the stars were not giving us light. It was not a starlit night. It was not a moonlit night. Okay. The moon seems to have set down earlier than the time. The stars seems to have gone out of light earlier than they should have because something inauspicious is going to happen. So nature has put on a very gloomy, pathetic look, a very melancholic look, okay, as if nature understands the feelings of the mind of man. Nature understands what is going to happen on the earth and thinking that nature is crying, nature is becoming sad, nature is becoming melancholic. In this play, you will see when King Lear is turned out of the doors of his two daughters. King Lear is forsaken by his daughter Gonadil and by his daughter Regan. He is driven away. The doors are closed before him. King Lear, in fact, is driven mad. King Lear went to his daughter Gonadil with a great hope that he would be entertained by his daughter Gonadil because he promised that he loves nothing more than his father. But after going there, he sees a different picture of his daughter. King Lear feels shocked, horrified. He feels really astonished when he sees that cruelty of his daughter. Even he is sort of driven away from his from her house. King Lear is now going to his second daughter, Regan. Regan also behaves the same way in which Cornelius is behaving. King Lear even falls at the feet of Cornelius. King Lear is a haughty person, has never knelt down in his life. He is a man always with his head upright. He has never gone to feel weak, even in his life. And today, King Lear has knelt down, is sitting at the feet of Regan, imploring her not to drive him mad, not to drive him away. He says that I will wait until your character becomes good, until you realize that you misbehaved with your father. But Regan does not behave softly with her father. In fact, Regan drives her father away. And the King Lear is now walking on the street, having no shelter for his head. King Lear is crying, and just at the time you see a storm is holding. This storm seems to be representing the inner feelings of King Lear's mind. King Lear is crying, King Lear's heart is bleeding, the that means tears are oozing down his eyes, blood is oozing from his heart, and it is raining outside. The raindrops are actually representing the tears uh, that are rolling down the cheeks of King Lear. The storm that is holding outside is the storm that is actually blowing in the mind of Shakespeare. And you see, it is the furious storm. It is the most violent storm the earth has ever seen. Shakespeare has narrated the storm in such a way that it would bring the sky down on the earth. It would fly the earth into the ocean. Okay, it would fly the earth into the ocean. The storm is blowing so violently. It's a terrific storm. It is the more terrific than the tempest in which the ships of Alonso Antonio were caught. It is blowing so violently that Shakespeare is saying that it would bring down the earth on the sky. It would bring the sky on the earth. It would push the earth into the ocean. And it's a pitch dark black night. The night is terribly black. Usually the night does not become as black as it has become today. It is in this night, on this night, when King Lear is walking. King Lear didn't have this kind of experience. He's walking, he's getting wet in the rain. He's walking, and the drops of rain are washing away the tears that are rolling down the cheeks of King Lear. So the storm outside is getting connected to the storm that is blowing in the mind of King Lear. So look how an external thing is getting connected to an internal thing. Okay, it's kind of objective correlative. Objects outside are getting correlated to objects inside. So how things have been matched. It is done by good dramatists. যেমন দেখবা আমাদের সিনেমাগুলোতে ভালো ভালো ড্রামাটিস্টরা করে, যেমন নন্দিত নরকে সিনেমাটা যদি তুমি দেখো, হুমায়ুন আহমেদের তৈরি করা, দেখবা যে ওই প্রতিবন্ধী মেয়েটি যখন রেপড হচ্ছে তখন একটা ট্রেন যায়. You'll see. Okay, you'll see a train is running when that physically challenged girl is raped. That means he wants to tell us something by that symbol. আমাদের আরেকটি সিনেমা আছে, সিনেমাটার নাম দেখা, ইউটিউবে পেতে পারো. সেখানে বরিশালের একটি ছেলে ইন্ডিয়াতে গেছে, তখন ইন্ডিয়া বাংলাদেশের ভাগাভাগি হয়নি. এই ছেলেটি অন্ধ, জীবনে কেউ কাউকে কোনোদিন ভালোবাসেনি. হ্যাঁ, তো ইন্ডিয়াতে যে একটি বাড়িতে আছে, ওখানে একটি মেয়েটির হাজবেন্ড অনেক আগে মারা গেছে. তো তার ভিতরে এক ধরনের ভালোবাসা আছে, কিন্তু সেই ভালোবাসা প্রকাশের তার কোনো উপায় নেই, because that's a very conservative society. So she does not have any way to give a way to her love. So when that blind person lives in that home, one day he's singing, and this woman cannot resist the temptation of going to his room, because his song is so rhythmic, so melancholic, and so sweet. It seems to that lady goes to his room, এবং তার just গায়ে হাত দেয়. এতে তার মনে হয় এটা একটা বাতাস উঠেছে চারিপাশে, গাছের পাতাগুলো ঝরে পড়ছে, হ্যাঁ, a storm is blowing. But this is not a very sad storm. It seems to be a kind of romantic storm that is blowing outside. That is a kind of wind is also blowing in his mind. The wind that is blowing in his mind has been connected to this wind that is blowing outside. এই বাইরের এই বাতাসটি দিয়ে বোঝানো হচ্ছে যে এর মনে এরকম একটি, ওর মনটি এরকম একটু আনন্দে দুলে উঠছে। Yeah. So it is done by good dramatists. Shakespeare has done this here. This storm is actually representing the heart of King Lear when King Lear is driven mad by his two daughters. Can you imagine this picture? যে এরকম একটি রাত, গভীর রাত, এরকম ভয়ঙ্কর একটি ঝড় বয়ে চলেছে, এত ভয়ঙ্কর ঝড় যে মানুষকে উড়িয়ে নিয়ে যাবে, আকাশ ছিল, আকাশ থেকে নেমে মাটিতে চলে আসবে, এই পৃথিবীকে ধেয়ে সাগরে নিয়ে চলে যাচ্ছে, এরকম একটি ব্যাপার। কিং লিয়ার জীবনে তার সারাটি জীবন সে এরকম রাজকীয় জীবন যাপন করেছে। He had been the king of this country. He is still the king of this country. But that king is now working as poorer than the beggar of this country. He is poorer than the beggar of this country. He was only yesterday the king of this country, and today he does not have anything. So this thing is very important. এবং এই ঝড়ে কিন্তু আরো অনেক, ঝড়টা কিন্তু থেমে যায়নি, ঝড়টা অনেক সময় ধরে প্রবাহিত হচ্ছে। It is not that the storm has stopped suddenly. Rather, the storm continues blowing for a long time. The storm is spread over 3 scenes in this play. 3টা সিনে তুমি স্টর্মটাকে দেখতে পাবা। This is a long storm that is blowing. It is spread over 3 scenes in this play. And in this storm, we also see এই স্টর্মের দিনেই কিন্তু গ্লোসেস্টারের চোখ দুটো তুলে নেওয়া হয়েছিল। When King Lear was driven away, Gloucester could not but feel sympathetic towards King Lear. Okay, Gloucester is in a dilemma as to whether he would take the side of King Lear or he would take the side of the Duke of Albany. Okay, he is in a dilemma. কারণ তার allegiance-টা ছিল দুইজনের কাছে। His allegiance was to the king and also to the Duke of Albany. ওকে, গ্লোসেস্টার হচ্ছে আর্ল ছোট একটি জায়গাকার শাসক, সে ওই অ্যালবেনির এরিয়ায় পড়ে, সুতরাং হিজ অ্যালিজিয়েন্স ইজ বোথ টু দ্য ডিউক অফ অ্যালবেনি অ্যান্ড ফাইনালি টু দ্য কিং অফ দ্য কান্ট্রি। রাজার প্রতি তার আছে। সো হু উইল হি চুজ? ফাইনালি গ্লোসেস্টার, হি ইজ অ্যান ওল্ড ম্যান and he understands the pains of old man. He comes to feel sympathetic towards King Lear, and only for coming to help King Lear, he is arrested and produced before the Duke of Albany, and finally Regan, Duke Albany, pluck out his 2 eyes. On this night, যেদিনকে এই ঝড় প্রবাহিত হচ্ছে, সেখানে আমরা গ্লোসেস্টারকে 2 সময় পাই। একবার হচ্ছে তার চোখ উপরাদুর আগে, he went to King Lear, and after his eyes were plucked out, he is again seen with King Lear on the heath. There, King Lear is behaving madly, and you have seen how King Lear is behaving on that heath. He has completely gone mad. King Lear does not seem to have any sign of sanity in him left. He seems to have gone a complete mad. সম্পূর্ণরূপে একটি পাগল। He is not behaving rationally. He has really become a man. As you have seen that he has held a mock trial of his ungrateful daughters, okay, with Edgar as a justice and the fool as another justice. Edgar is one judge and the fool is another judge. They are 2 judges sitting there. King Lear has met them. Say, you are the 2 judges. Tell me, what punishment should we give to these 2 ungrateful daughters? So he's holding a mock trial of his ungrateful daughters. Okay, when Edgar is there, you will see that King Lear thinks that Edgar is behaving mad, okay, behaving like a mad there, and King Lear thinks that Edgar has also gone mad because of the cruelty and ingratefulness of his 2 daughters. He finds similarity between him and Edgar. So King Lear is behaving in this way. This storm, which is blowing very madly, okay, frenziedly, is actually representing the frenzied behavior and the mad behavior of King Lear. The storm that is blowing in this terrific way is actually bringing out the terrific imaginations, the terrific feelings, thoughts that King Lear is going through now in his mind. What is King Lear thinking? When King Lear is driven away by his two daughters, King Lear is feeling like killing the two daughters, or King Lear is thinking of many things we cannot see. This frenzied behavior of the storm, okay, this mad attitude of the storm is actually bringing out that unseen, okay, unspoken feelings that King Lear is going through in his mind. So the storm is actually a representation of King Lear's mind. You can say that here. Uh, Another thing is that regeneration of King Lear and Gloucester. This is very important. Perhaps Shakespeare wanted to give this message to us significantly that King Lear was regenerated. King Lear was reborn. Gloucester was also reborn in this play. King Lear was a very uh, bad person in the beginning we have seen. Okay, he does not seem to have any sympathy, any love, any compassion in his heart. Okay. He is a cruel person. His heart is full of cruelties. He does not know how to show sympathy towards others. Even he does not love his own daughters. We have seen. We have seen how badly he behaves with his own servant Kent, and this is how he has behaved with other people. In his long career of, he has never been criticized by anybody, and that is why he cannot tolerate criticism. He does not like to have advice from anybody because in his long career, he is never advised by anybody. He does not have any advisor. Okay, he has always been obeyed by people. He ordered, and his orders were carried out and obeyed by other people. So in that long period of despotic rule, he learned to be very tyrannical and despotic. He didn't have any love and compassion in his mind. He was a blind man, in fact. He was a blind man, in fact, in the beginning. He didn't have the spiritual eyes that one needs to have to distinguish between the right and the wrong. King Lear is completely an impractical person, having no common sense and intelligence, we think. But when he is suffering, the sufferings are regenerating. Okay, regenerating new virtues in King Lear. In fact, King Lear is regenerated. We see today in his poverty, King Lear seems to be rich. And when he was his riches, within riches, he was very poor. He didn't have love. He didn't have sympathy. He didn't have compassion. He was very poor in these qualities. But when he is suffering, when he does not have anything, he seems to have become very rich. Okay. তার যখন কিছু নেই তখন যেন সে উদার হয়ে গেছে. He is very generous now when he does not have anything. Today he understands the pains of sufferings. When King Lear is suffering, he has understood the pains of sufferings. When King Lear has nothing, he has understood the pains of having nothing. When King Lear is shelterless, he has understood the pains of becoming shelterless. Today, King Lear seems to be reminded of his justices or injustices that he rendered in his career that made many people shelterless or gave as much sufferings as he is getting today. And that is why King Lear seems to have grown wise today. As you have seen, when Edgar is behaving Edgar is very helpless because he is driven away. That means he's always chased by the forces set on him by his father. So he is trying to avoid being arrested by his father. He is living here very poorly. He does not have any dress on his body. You see King Lear is putting up his own blanket and giving it to Edgar. Look how sympathetic King Lear has become. He's putting off his blanket and he's giving it to Edgar. Today he has love. He thinks that Edgar is trembling in cold. He's shivering in cold. And he feels very sad when he sees that a man before his eyes is shivering in cold. He feels sympathetic towards him. He puts off his own only blanket and is giving to Edgar. So look, King Lear seems to have become a true man today. King Lear was not this kind of man in his long life, when he was the king of this country, he actually had nothing. And when he has nothing, he seems to have everything today. So this is how King Lear is regenerated. If King Lear had not suffered, King Lear could not have understood the pains of suffering. King Lear could not have understood the pains of becoming homeless, shelterless. King Lear could not have understood the pains of having nothing. And a person needs to have the knowledge of the pains of sufferings. If a person does not have the knowledge of the pains of sufferings, that person cannot understand whether the people of his country are living well or not. So king, or not only a king, every person should have that. So man learns better when he is exposed to sufferings, when he is exposed to distress. Until a person is exposed to distress, he does not become a seasoned person, a wise person. And that is why King Lear is brought to this premise of sufferings. By showing these sufferings of King Lear, Shakespeare wanted to bring people the powerful people who always made excesses of their powers. That these are the results. Gloucester is also, look, Gloucester is also regenerated. When Gloucester had two eyes, he was blind. He could not understand who was good and who was bad. He could not distinguish what was the right and what was the wrong. He believed his bastard son Edmund and went against his own son Edgar. Today, his eyes are opened when he does not have actually two eyes. His eyes have been plucked out, so having no eyes today, Gloucester seems to have all the light that a person needs to have to distinguish between the right and the wrong. So Gloucester is also regenerated. Gloucester today has two eyes that he has earned through the sufferings. He does not have physical eyes, but he has earned to spiritual eyes, with the help of which today Gloucester can see what is right and what is wrong. So this is how Gloucester and King Lear have been regenerated. Okay. Sufferings are meaningful. Sufferings are meaningful. And this meaning of these sufferings has been dramatized here in this play. If you have read, have you read Akhenaron's The Guide? Someone
No,
of
sir.
you said guide. Is it not in your syllabus in
No,
South
sir.
Asian literature or in third world literature or post-colonial literature? It should be there.
No,
There
sir.
we find suffering. Okay, suffering has a positive meaning. Suffering is not always a source of pains. Suffering are sometimes a source of knowledge. Okay, so don't feel afraid of sufferings. When you are exposed to sufferings, you are exposed to a kind of source of knowledge that will give you a kind of lesson that you did not have when you did not have the suffering, when you were not exposed to the sufferings. Until you are exposed to sufferings, you don't know the pains of sufferings. And everybody should have knowledge of the pains of sufferings. Otherwise, you may go on committing faults, okay? And those faults might bring disasters, pains, sufferings to other people. If you are aware of the pains of sufferings of people, then you will not do that. So man has to have knowledge of the pains of sufferings. So King Lear and Gloucester are regenerated through the sufferings. So this is very important in this play, that King Lear and Gloucester are regenerated, mainly to these two characters. And plot construction, I have already talked on this, that the plot construction of this play is very, very important. You'll try to read the play very carefully, and you will see how similar things are happening in both the plot, and the subplot is reinforcing and intensifying uh, the, the significance, the tragic environment, the tragic mode of the main plot. So the subplot is not actually an extra thing here, an additional thing here, rather it is there to enhance the tragic feeling, tragic mood and empowerment of the play. However, I told you, perhaps, I don't know whether I told you, that subplot is not in the original version. Okay, the subplot is not in the original version. That means in the story of King Lear that Shakespeare found in Holinshed's Chronicles or in this Historia Regum Britannica written by Geoffrey of Monmouth. There we don't find the story of Gloucester and Kent or Edmund. This is created by Shakespeare. And why did Shakespeare create it, add it to it? Why did Shakespeare add this subplot to it? If it was not here, it would have been a good play. But Shakespeare added it, perhaps he had a kind of purpose. And the purpose that I told you, that means perhaps he wanted to draw attention of the society to the pains of the bastards, to the illegitimate, the unlawful practices that the society had been practicing for centuries. A very bad practice that brands somebody as a bastard. Shakespeare seems to have a kind of sympathy towards these people. Okay. If Shakespeare had a bastard, okay, if Shakespeare, just today you will write Shakespeare's bastard son, okay, you will find the name of that person. He claimed himself to be a bastard son of Shakespeare. If Shakespeare had had a bastard son, Shakespeare didn't dare to or could not dare to give things to that bastard because Shakespeare could not go against the tradition. The tradition says that you can just acknowledge that son to be your son. He can give him only that right to call you as father, but you will not give anything to him. This is the tradition, that is the law of the country. So Shakespeare perhaps wanted to say that this law is not actually very lawful. This law is not actually very good law. So he wanted to bring about a kind of reformation in this law that was depriving the bastards. Shakespeare perhaps wanted to love that son. Here you will see Gloucester says, Edmund says that my father loves me. Gloucester loves Edmund as much as Gloucester loves Edgar. Gloucester does not make any discrimination in his love between Edmund and Edgar. He loves the bastard as much as he loves the legitimate son. But only because of this law, only because of this tradition and custom, Gloucester would not be able to give anything to the bastard.
So it could be for King James also, because if this rule was allowed, then King James would not be king at that time, because his great grandfather had many illegitimate sons, and they could be the king of Scotland back then.
Maybe it may be. So you know that Shakespeare seems to have preserved, okay, many interests of the kings in his plays. James I went to the theater, okay, to see himself the enactment of many plays of Shakespeare. And many of the plays Shakespeare wrote only to please James I. So it might be that Shakespeare actually wanted to legalize the bastards, and he wanted to please James I. If he could do that in that way. However, if he does that, so he was doing that purposefully.
Baba, your class time is going up.
My class time is going up, Baba? Yes, I will end my class within 2 minutes. Okay, it's 2 minutes. So what you are saying is right. So Shakespeare wanted to bring about a kind of reformation in this system. Okay, it may be that Shakespeare was serving the purpose of the king, but you can also say that Shakespeare was serving his own purpose, because we see that Shakespeare, if it is true that Shakespeare had a bastard son, already one person in the Restoration period claimed himself to be a bastard son of Shakespeare. If Shakespeare had had a son really who was a bastard, Shakespeare perhaps loved that son. However, after losing his son, Shakespeare had a son called Hamlet. After losing his son, Shakespeare perhaps was feeling more sympathetic towards that bastard if he had had. Okay, and even Shakespeare wanted to give everything to that bastard because that was his son. But because of this law, because of this tradition, Shakespeare would not be able to give anything to that son, although he was his son. So he wanted to bring about a kind of reformation. King Lear was written later than Hamlet. Hamlet was written perhaps immediately after the death of his son Hamlet, but King Lear was written either in 1605 or 6. Okay, it may be the year when Shakespeare wrote King Lear. King Lear perhaps was written after Shakespeare lost his son Hamlet. হ্যামনেট নামের শেক্সপিয়ারের একটি ছেলে ছিল, সেই সন্তানটি মরে যাওয়ার পরে শেক্সপিয়ার তার কিং লিয়ার নাটকটি লিখতে পারে। আর শেক্সপিয়ারের নিজের সন্তানটি যখন মারা গেল, একটি মাত্র লিগ্যাল সন্তান, সেটি মারা গেল। মারা যাওয়ার পরে সন্তানের প্রতি একটা আকাঙ্ক্ষা থেকে থাকতে পারে একজন মানুষের, কিন্তু তার একটি সন্তান আছে, তাকে সে ভালোবাসে এবং শেক্সপিয়ারের অর্জিত সবকিছু হয়তো তার সন্তানকে সে দিতে চায়, কিন্তু দিতে পারছে না। কেন দিতে পারছে না? ইফ হি গিভস his land, property or assets to that bastard, then he will have to go against the tradition, the custom of the country. And you cannot go against the custom and tradition of the country until that tradition is reformed. Okay, so Shakespeare draws the attention of the society to these illegitimate practices that have been observed by people for centuries. And he wants to bring about a kind of reformation to these things. And that is why he might have introduced the subplot here, and that is why he has made the bastard, who is a villain, but again different from others. This villain draws our attention. Shakespeare has made it very clear why that villain has become a villain, and we find a legitimate ground on which he is becoming a villain. He is a villain not for any personal reason. Okay. Not out of greed, he has become reason. He has become reason because he has become a villain because he wants to draw the attention of the society. He is saying here, why should I be considered a bastard? Why should I be considered a base? I am as shaped as my brother. I am as noble-minded as my brother. I am as intelligent as my brother. And my father loves me as much as he loves my legal brother. Nevertheless, this society deprives me of the things that as a son of my father, I should get. What kind of society is this? So Edmund draws the attention of this society and he is revolting against it. So thank you very much. You will read it very carefully. This is a very good play, and the issues that I have drawn your attention to, you will try to learn very deeply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.